where you start doing something, and after a while you wonder why you're doing it, why you started doing it. I think in some ways climate change negotiations are a bit like that. People, government representatives, NGOs have been negotiating an adequate response to climate change since 1992, since the Rio Convention was signed. And many of the people that you see walking around here, especially some of the slightly older ones, have been in this process for a very long time. Have been working for a very long time towards this robust response to climate change. They've been negotiating the text for years. They know the people that they're trying to reach consensus with. They understand the views of other parties completely. And I think just like it's occasionally good to step back and wonder why you're doing something, it's good for the negotiators to step back and be reminded of what they're supposed to be doing here. And in that sense, I think your role is very important. Next week, we will have, I think the current count is 110 heads of states and governments coming to the end of this conference. They're coming because they think climate change is important, but they're also coming because they see a growing public support for a robust response to climate change. And that, I think, is once again where you come in. I strongly believe that the response to climate change that we see at the end of this conference will be a reflection of what world leaders think they need to do in order to satisfy you, so you elect them the next time that they're ready to be elected. That's one of a number of reasons. And that takes me to your role again. I think it is really important that you're here. I think it's maybe even more important what you were doing before you came here. We've seen in countries around the world, in the run-up to this conference, very strong expressions of public support. Through demonstrations, through art competitions, through all kinds of initiatives. And those are exactly the kinds of initiatives that drive home to politicians that you're serious about this issue, and that therefore they need to be serious about this issue.
Whose very compelling story of how she became a climate change activist after the deadly flooding of Mumbai led to a turn of events which led Ruchi to resign from her successful job in marketing and advertising to promote climate awareness and support local actions all over India as part of the Indian Youth Action Network and 350.org team. Ms. Brigitte Cindy Makubedi.
I didn't get back home for 5 days. India has been subject to floods for centuries, but lately these floods are happening more and more. People have actually become used to their homes being washed away. This is my story. There are millions of such stories from people all around the world. We are sharing this pain, this common problem, a global problem. Now, these negotiations have been conducted from an adversarial point of view. Dear negotiators and friends, I am going to give you my trust. And all, I hope, and the youth, the trust. I trust you to do the right thing by yourself and for all of us. I trust you to live up my hopes and dreams. I trust you to secure my future for our survival. I trust you to view these negotiations not as us versus them, but as we are in this together. This trust is honest, but it is also fragile. Please, please, please don't let us down.
I think that you're being a little careless with trust. I think that trust is something that you earn. It's not something that you're given. And certainly this process still has to earn my trust.
Spencer from Australia, who originally intended to be a professor of English literature and instead answered a call from deep within after college to work on policies in service of the world's most vulnerable populations for an NGO based in Germany, and is now focusing his current efforts on climate change in Russia.
I am 23, and it is my generation, us, which will change. A flexible, adaptable, informed, determined generation. Maybe the first ever global generation. I personally am aware of the size of the challenge, but I know that it is possible, and how much I'm looking forward to being a part of it. Imagine a child standing on a seesaw, on the end of a seesaw. With each step forward towards the pivot, the balance of the system slowly changes. I hope that Copenhagen can be a crucial step forward for that child, humanity, so that in the next decades, my generation and future generations can begin to walk downhill, not uphill, towards a fairer, safer, emissions-free future.
Why should political and economical interest be considered when we are talking about 200 or more million lives at stake because of climate change? Why shouldn't we make a move by at least putting that a little bit behind our decisions while we are thinking about the children as well as all the adults and generations to come?
This is the way the world is set up, and we have to do something about it. But the reality is that everything that we do out there is based on political decisions, and those political decisions are based on economic and political realities.
In South Africa, we are presently facing extremely cold and extremely hot weather conditions and heavy rains due to climate change. Recently, we had about 7 days of heavy rains. There were floods. We couldn't go to school. I had to miss my exams because of climate change. Because of floods, I was afraid of drowning. The Children's Climate Forum brought together 169 children from 44 countries. And we attended various workshops of mitigation and adaptation. We came up with a declaration, which I don't know if we have with us, which was written by all 169 of us. I would like to advise all the governments of developing countries. I know we all need development for our countries, but at least let's try to industrialize in a green way and decrease our CO2 emissions. I can say to the world leaders to agree to sign the deal so that we can all have a better future and save the world for our children.